Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Radhe Ki Jai. Ganga Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
Hari Hari Bol.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Right. Hare Krishna. Thank you everybody for coming today.
Hare Krishna.
Continuing our reading from Caitanya Caritamrita. I think we're on Madhya Lila, chapter 4. I think we're starting with text 134. Just give it a second until we get the page up. Or if you just want to make me the host now, I could also call it up.
Yeah, I made you host now, Prabhu.
Okay, I'll call up the page. Let's see. Okay, just give me half a moment here. I thought I had the page. Just give me a second, I'll find it. Ah, there we are. Okay. Sorry for my fumbling around here. Share. There we are. Okay. Everyone can see now the verse?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's the usual assigned reading person?
Narasimha Prahlad Prabhu.
Okay. If you don't mind, please. So I don't have to mangle the Bangla.
Hare Krishna. ক্ষীর লইয়া সুখে তুমি করহ ভক্ষণে তোমার সম ভাগ্যবান নাহি ত্রিভুবনে.
How does Vishnu Prabhu also read the word-for-word translation?
Yeah, translation
Okay.
purport.
Okay.
No synonyms, Prabhu.
Synonym, yeah.
Synonyms.
Kshira
No
Lana.
synonyms.
No synonyms.
Oh, he doesn't?
No.
He doesn't. Okay, we'll just jump to the translation then. The priest continued. I'm sorry.
You make it little
Yeah.
up, little
Okay.
up.
The priest continued, would the sannyasi, whose name is Madhavendra Puri, please come and take this pot of sweet rice and enjoy the prasadam with great happiness. You are the most fortunate person within these three worlds. Purport. Here is an example of a personal benediction by Krishna's immoral activity. By Gopinath stealing for his devotee, the devotee becomes the most fortunate person within the three worlds. Thus, even the Lord's criminal activities make his devotee the most fortunate person. How can a mundane rascal understand the pastimes of Krishna and judge whether he is moral or immoral? Since Krishna is the absolute truth, there are no mundane distinctions such as moral and immoral. Whatever he does is good. That is the real meaning of God is good. He is good in all circumstances because he is transcendental, outside the jurisdiction of this material world. Therefore, Krishna can be understood only by those who are already living in the spiritual world. This is corroborated in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. One who is engaged in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord is already situated in the spiritual world. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. In all circumstances, his activities and dealings with Krishna are transcendental and thus not understandable by mundane moralists. It is therefore better not to discuss such activities among mundane people. It is better to give them the Hare Krishna Mahamantra so that they will be gradually purified and then come to understand the transcendental activities of Krishna. So this is an astounding purport Prabhupada gives here. That first line really struck me. Here is an example of a personal benediction by Krishna's immoral activity. In the material world, if we're benedicted by someone's immoral activity, like if someone steals money and then gives me some of that money, I'm benedicted by that immoral activity, but that benediction is actually a curse because I'm karmically affected by the sinful touch of the money obtained by illicit means. But the benediction of the devotee by Krishna's immoral activity, Prabhupada puts that so beautifully. This is a very interesting point that Prabhupada is discussing here. It's not rocket science, but it's a little bit subtle that needs to be understood. There's morality. Morality means understanding and doing what is good, what is right, what is acceptable, what is proper. That is being moral or morality. And on the other side, well, there's actually different words. One word is unmoral or non-moral. This refers to things like if I'm walking in the jungle and a tiger kills me, that's not a sinful activity. That's the tiger just doing its life. The tiger has no moral boundaries or moral conception. It just follows the laws of its nature, the laws of material nature. So there's no morality included, although we may be upset. I would be upset. Maybe some other people would be upset. But it's not an immoral act. That's unmoral or non-moral. And then there's a person who intentionally he knows what is right, but still he does what is wrong, either for some profit or some sense gratification or out of greed. This is called someone who is immoral. They're against morality. But Krishna is so transcendental that even his immoral activity is the most moral of all. Prabhupada said that's what it means that God is good. Krishna steals and it's good. He steals and gives his stolen property to devotees. And that's the greatest blessing that devotee can receive. Whereas all material creatures within this world, sarasat yoni janmasu, we're all born into this world of sarasat, of good and evil. And we're bound by these good rules of good and evil. And if we do good activities, we get a good result. And if we do bad activities, we get a bad result. But Krishna, whatever he does is all good. He steals, it's still all good. Krishna, he's always moral. You could say, I'll make up a word. You could call him transmoral. He's beyond mundane morality, and thus he is the most moral. Just like Krishna is transcendental to this material world, and it doesn't mean he's void. It means he has the greatest transcendental body and the greatest transcendental beauty and the most wonderful transcendental form and the most amazing transcendental pastimes. So Krishna is transmoral, which means he's the most transcendentally moral person. Everything he does is beneficial for himself, for his devotees, and for the entire world. So much so that we worship Krishna's immorality. Krishna is worshipped as Makanchor, that he steals the butter of the gopis. Krishna is stealing other men's wives and dancing with them in the dead of night. Ordinarily the most condemned thing, almost the most condemned thing a person can do. But we worship Krishna for this. So this is his morality. So Krishna is stealing for his devotee, and the devotee, the most fortunate person within the three worlds. Now, like I said, it's not rocket science, but the subtlety is that we have to be careful not to take advantage of this on ourselves. Because Krishna is so transcendentally moral, that means the process of devotional service is also, even if there appears to be some inebriety, if it's actually in line with devotional service, it's perfect. But that doesn't mean we could do anything we want and rubber stamp it in the name of devotional service. Shruti smriti paranadi pancharachika vidim vina. That if you perform your devotional service, so-called devotional service, without reference to the rules and regulations of devotional service, and it's simply a disturbance in society. Just like Prabhupada said, how do you know one of my devotees? He is a perfect gentleman. So a perfect gentleman means following not just ordinary etiquette that, oh, you know which fork to use for the salad and which to use for the entree, or you hold your pinky out when you're drinking tea. This is not the etiquette. This means that he behaves perfectly in every sense with every person. Just like one example, one devotee was asking about, can the devotees get government welfare in order to get, food or food stamps or whatever? And Prabhupada said, you can do, but you can't lie to get it. If you follow the rules and do it truthfully, you can do. So the devotee is also very careful to be moral. But Krishna's morality is the most perfect. And if someone imitates that, then they're doomed. This is from the purport, Bhagavad Gita purport of 324. And the verse is Krishna's describing how he himself, describing to Arjuna, how he himself has to work in order to set the example for the world. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, let's see. Therefore, whenever there is general disregard of regulative principles, the Lord himself descends and corrects society. We should, however, note carefully that although we have to follow in the footsteps of the Lord, we still have to remember that we cannot imitate him. Following and imitating are not on the same level. We cannot imitate the Lord by lifting Govardhan Hill, as the Lord did in his childhood. It is impossible for any human being. We have to follow his instructions, but we may not imitate him at any time. And then he quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam. Quote, one should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, One should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. So this is a very good example. But the beauty of Krishna consciousness and the beauty of the Shastra, and especially the beauty of Srila Prabhupada's presentation, is that when we read this about, just like we're reading today, if we read about Krishna's thievery, or if we read in the Krishna book about Krishna's dancing with other men's wives, he's explaining so perfectly why he's different than us, why his situation is different, and why that's actually worshipable. Krishna here, he's Kira Chor. He's stealing the kheer. But who was that kheer made for? In the temple kitchen, the brahmanas who are cooking that kheer are thinking, I am preparing this for Krishna. And when the pujari is putting it on the altar to do an offering, he's thinking, I am offering this to Krishna. And not only that, the very ingredients of the rice, the milk, the sugar, all comes from different transformations of Krishna's energy. So it's all meant for Krishna. Ishavasyam idam sarvam yat kinchid jagatam jagat. It's all belongs to Krishna, and it's all meant for Krishna. So what's the question of him stealing anything? But still, for his pastime and out of love for his devotee Madhavendra Puri, he's stealing. Same thing when Krishna is stealing butter from the gopis. He showed Mother Yashoda when he opened his mouth, the entire universe within his mouth. So that means the butter is also there within his mouth. It's already contained within him. So what's the question of him stealing anything, right? It's already Krishna's energy and belonging to Krishna. And here's one nice excerpt from Krishna book, from chapter 11. This is after the liberation of Nalakuva and Manigriva. That's right. After that pastime, and Krishna was still tied up to the mortar after the trees had come down. So Nanda Maharaj began to smile, hearing about the extraordinary abilities of his son. He came forward and untied the knot just to free his wonderful child. After being freed by Nanda Maharaj, Krishna was taken onto the laps of the elderly gopis. They took him away to the courtyard of the house and began to clap, praising his wonderful activities. Krishna began to clap along with them, just like an ordinary child. The Supreme Lord Krishna, being completely controlled by the gopis, began to sing and dance just like a puppet in their hands. So, when we hear this, these pastimes, Krishna is doing this all for the pleasure of his devotees. There's no immorality. It's the greatest morality. One time, one man complained to Srila Prabhupada, oh, Krishna's pastimes are immoral because he's dancing with other men's wives. And Prabhupada replied, no, all women belong to Krishna. So why are you trying to enjoy Krishna's women? You're the immoral one. I don't remember the exact words. This is a paraphrase from memory. So Krishna is not immoral. We are immoral when we try to enjoy what actually belongs to Krishna. And in fact, Krishna's illicit activities, so-called illicit immoral activities, are so worshipable that Shukadev Goswami prays at the end of the Rasa dance Leela. At the end of the Rasa Leela, he says, last verse of that chapter, anyone who faithfully hears or describes the Lord's playful affairs with the young gopis of Vrindavan will attain the Lord's pure devotional service. Thus he will quickly become sober and conquer lust, the disease of the heart. This is how perfectly moral Krishna is. If we hear about some mundane person enjoying with other men's wives in the dead of night, our lust will overcome us. It will increase to such a degree that we will fall down. But if we hear about Krishna's so-called lusty activities, then we become purified of material lust. This is the difference. Anyone have any questions or comments on this particular verse and purport so far? Anyone like to add anything to this? If so, just go right ahead and chime in.
শুনি পুরী গোসাই পরিচয় দিল, ক্ষীর দিয়া পূজারি তারে দণ্ডবত হইল।
I'm sorry, what was that?
I am reading the Bengali text.
Oh, that's the next verse. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, once more, I missed that.
এত শুনি পুরী গোসাই পরিচয় দিল, ক্ষীর দিয়া পূজারি তারে দণ্ডবত হইল।
Translation. Hearing this invitation, Madhavendra Puri came out and identified himself. The priest then delivered the pot of sweet rice and offered his obeisances, falling flat before him. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. A Brahmana is not supposed to offer his obeisances by falling flat before anyone, because a Brahmana is considered to be in the highest caste. However, when a Brahmana sees a devotee, he offers his dandavats. This Brahmana priest did not ask Madhavendra Puri whether he was a Brahmana, but when he saw that Madhavendra Puri was such a bona fide devotee that Krishna would even steal for him, he immediately understood the position of the saint, as stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kiba vipra kibanyasi shudra keninai, ye Krishna tattva veta se guru hai. Caitanya Caritamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 8, text 128. Had the Brahmana priest been an ordinary Brahmana, Gopinath would not have talked with him in a dream. Since the deity spoke to both Madhavendra Puri and the Brahmana priest in dreams, practically speaking, they were on the same platform. However, because Madhavendra Puri was a senior sannyasi Vaishnava, a Paramahamsa, the priest immediately fell flat before him and offered obeisances. This is also a beautiful and very significant verse. A Brahmana doesn't offer obeisances to anyone. And yet we've seen so many cases where a Brahmana failed to offer obeisances to a Vaishnava, and it was his downfall. Krishnadas Kaviraj himself, the author of Caitanya Caritamrita, experienced that a devotee came and the priest was worshiping the deity and failed to, I can't remember, who was the devotee who would carry a flute with him? I can't remember. But that devotee came and the pujari did not offer respects to the devotee when he arrived. And because of that, Krishnadas Kaviraj rejected him and actually left and went to Vrindavan and wrote Caitanya Caritamrita. Or the example in Krishna Lila is, what was his name? Sutta? Not Sutta Goswami.
Romaharsana?
Romaharshan Sutta, yes, thank you. Yes, Romaharshan Sutta. He was a Brahmana. Not only he was a Brahmana, he was respected out of all the Brahmanas, even though he was not born a Brahmana. But he was respected by all the Brahmanas so much that he was offered the seat of the Vyasasan. And he thought, I'm on the Vyasasan. Like Prabhupada says in the purport, a Brahmana is not supposed to offer his obeisances. So when Lord Balaram appeared, he did not offer his obeisances. And because of that, he was destroyed by Lord Balaram. So there's so many instances like that where a so-called Brahmana fails to respect a Vaishnava. And this was one of the main missions of both Prabhupada and his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, was to defeat this Brahmanism, this caste Brahmanism. So this is a very important thing. But this Brahmana, this priest who looked for Madhavendra Puri to deliver the sweet rice, was so intelligent and spiritually realized that he said, oh, I may be a Brahmana, but this person, Krishna stole a pot of sweet rice for him. So therefore, he's worthy of me offering respects to such a Vaishnava. And just let me point out again in the purport, let's see. Since the deity spoke to both Madhavendra Puri and the Brahmana priest in dreams, practically speaking, they were on the same platform. Now, who knows the name of that Brahmana priest? Who knows the history of that Brahmana priest, or the lineage of that Brahmana priest, or his activities? We don't know anything about him. He's, in one sense, a nobody. He's just an anonymous devotee. But Madhavendra Puri received a message in a dream from Krishna, and this Pujari also did. So they're on the same platform, and Madhavendra Puri is so important and so famous as the founder, the introducer of Madhurya Ras into our line, and so worshipped, and producing Ishwara Puri and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his line. So important. And this other Brahmana is, quote unquote, a nobody, but they're on the same platform. So in this connection, I wanted to read this. This is from a book by Satyaraj Prabhu, and he's interviewing a devotee named Srivatsa Goswami. Srivatsa Goswami is in the Goswami line of Radharaman Temple, and he's quite a scholar and a spiritual leader in his own right. But he was interviewed, and he spoke this, and I think it's very applicable here. He said, the real strength and glory of ISKCON lies in anonymous, obscure, yet sincere devotees. It does not lie in temples, in distributing 80 million Gitas, in a huge bank balance, or in any of those things. Again, those things are laudable when used properly, but the real strength and glory lies in just 5 or 10 sincere, if also obscure devotees. And ISKCON has many of them. The big people will come and go, but a sincere, simple heart will always be there, will always be ready to worship Krishna with love and devotion. And that's what keeps the movement alive. So this quote always struck me. I think it's very beautiful and very perceptive of him. That, of course, we have our leadership, our GBC, our sannyasis, our temple presidents, whatever. But at the heart of it, there are these obscure, sincere devotees. And we don't know. The person you're sitting next to at the Sunday feast, the person you're standing next to in kirtan at the temple, the person you bump into in the hallway, that person could be and very well may be one of these obscure, unknown devotees. The whole world doesn't, no one in the world knows who they are, but they're sincere souls to the best of their abilities, worshiping Krishna. And this is the strength of this movement, that we have more and more devotees like that. Big guns have to be there, big leaders have to be there. But if these ordinary, so-called ordinary devotees, who are just as good as the big leaders, as this Brahmana Pujari was on the same level as Madhavendra Puri, that although we worship Madhavendra Puri, this Brahmana was on the same level and just as important in his local situation, even if he didn't have the world-shaking, sampradaya influencing effect of Madhavendra Puri. So I like that very much, that the ordinary devotees, the so-called ordinary devotees, obscure devotees, need to be recognized and need to be praised also for their service. And their association is as valuable as that of any other devotees, even though we don't know who this Brahmana is, his name, his anything, but we can recognize what a wonderful devotee. And without his greatness, then the greatness of Madhavendra Puri wouldn't have been known to us. Madhavendra Puri would have never gotten the sweet rice, if not for the greatness of this Brahmana devotee, who is himself so qualified that Krishna spoke to him. So we could probably think in our lives of these obscure devotees who we run into in the congregation and the temple, visiting here or there, we see them, and we should know these persons are all worshipable. They're all great souls. And some of them may be even much greater than we realize. Any question or comment here?
Hare
Or
Krishna,
presentation
Prabhu.
on this?
Uh,
Yes, go ahead.
yeah, on this point, I think there's another way to also think about it. But first, there are definitely members like that in our congregation, and I have always been
Absolutely.
inspired. Uh, and I'm not going to mention his name only because he tries so hard not to be seen that, I don't want to be the one to. I mean, a lot of people do know him, comes on weekdays, does the pots, and one giveaway will be he used to mow the grass. And so just an unbelievable humility. But also the point is that if we truly believe that Krishna knows everything, then we will not need to be um, seen or heard or, known.
Right.
And I don't know what it is I'm trying to say, but the thing is, if you truly have faith that Krishna knows everything, then
Right.
whatever you do is seen and known by him.
Right.
He's in
Yes,
there with us
that's
in
a
the
wonderful
in.
point.
Yeah. So, but yes, I think noticing these people and learning from them is just so important, because no matter what, there is a little part of us that wants a little bit of acknowledgement of what we,
Sure.
not even recognition, but maybe an acknowledgement of what we are doing. And when you see these people, you are so inspired that, that's not why they are doing. They are doing the service truly only to please Krishna.
Guy, yes. Actually, that's again not a tricky thing, but something to remember is that the devotee wants no recognition for himself. But we as devotees, we want to recognize the service of those other devotees, of our friends, of our temple and community devotees. We want to recognize them. And also, even if we don't want praise for ourselves, and yet because we're people with emotions and feelings and with different psychological processes going on, if someone offers some praise or encouragement, that could be such a actually really valuable and wonderful thing for our own devotional service if we learn to learning how to gracefully accept praise. Sometimes oh Prabhu, you cooked that prasad so nicely. And you may respond, oh no, I'm lower than the stool in the street, or oh, I didn't do anything. I'm just Radharani did it. But actually, the person who cooked deserves some credit. The person who cooked actually deserves some real credit for cooking or cleaning or whatever it may be. And learning how to judiciously offer that praise and learning how to judiciously accept that praise is a nice thing. But generally for himself, a devotee doesn't want praise. And that'll come out also, coming out very soon in this Madhya Puri Leela. Prabhupada would sometimes say that the devotee is a silent worker. He doesn't trumpet his accomplishments. He's a silent worker. But yeah, that's a nice point, Mother. Thank you for that. Let's see now. Any other comments or move on to the next verse? Okay, next verse, text 136.
হীরের বৃত্তান্ত তারে কহিল পূজারী শুনি প্রেমাবৃষ্ট হইল শ্রী মাধবপুরী.
Translation. When the story about the pot of sweet rice was explained to him in detail, Sri Madhavendra Puri at once became absorbed in ecstatic love of Krishna. Text 137.
প্রেম দেখি সেবক কহে হইয়া বিস্মিত কৃষ্ণ যে ইহার বশ হয় যথোচিত.
Upon seeing Upon seeing the ecstatic loving symptoms manifest in Madhavendra Puri, the priest was struck with wonder. He could understand why Krishna had become so much obliged to him, and he saw that Krishna's action was befitting. Purport: a devotee can bring Krishna perfectly under his control. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.3. Ajita jito pyasitais trilokyam. Krishna is never conquered by anyone, but a devotee can conquer him through devotional service. As stated in the Brahma Samhita 5.33, Vedeshu durlabhama durlabhamatma bhakto. One cannot understand Krishna simply by reading Vedic literature. Although all Vedic literature is meant for understanding Krishna, one cannot understand Krishna without being a lover of Krishna. Therefore, along with the reading of Vedic literature, swadhyaya, one must engage in devotional worship of the deity, archana vidhi. Together, these will enhance the devotee's transcendental understanding of devotional service. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karye Uday. Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 22, text 107. Love of Godhead is dormant within everyone's heart, and if one simply follows the standard process of devotional service, it is awakened. But foolish, mundane people who simply read about Krishna mistakenly think that he is immoral or criminal. This is also very nice, and Prabhupada is returning to the point from text 134. At the end, he reiterates that don't think that Krishna is immoral or criminal. And actually, I didn't mention then, but in that purport, he says that if you're thinking like that, then don't read about Krishna's stealing activities or consorting with women or all of these activities. Don't read about them if you're so mundane. And Prabhupada here makes the point that reading by itself is insufficient. Swadhyaya, study of the Vedic literature, by itself is insufficient. It's necessary. It's vitally important, but it's insufficient on its own. Why? As he says here, one must engage in devotional worship of the deity. If you don't worship the deity, then how will you understand that Krishna is a person that you can serve, that you can take care of? How are you going to understand everything you eat, everything you offer, everything you do and give away is to be offered to Krishna without deity worship? That is very difficult. We heard in regular Bhagavatam class last week how difficult, how impossible it is to worship the impersonal absolute. Therefore, we worship the personal absolute, and the most congenial way to do that is through deity worship. And he says, together, these will enhance the devotee's transcendental understanding. That you study the Vedas and you live the Vedas by worshiping Krishna as the deity. And then he goes on, Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karye Uday. That's Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhyukabunoi. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Karye Uday. Devotional service is the birthright of every jiva soul. And it's there in his heart, but it's only awakened by all the processes of devotional service, beginning with hearing. And I won't beat it too much, but last week's class, we discussed the importance of just hearing about Krishna. So we hear about Krishna, we worship the deity and bow down before the deity, and we study the Vedas, and all together, this will allow us to understand Krishna. And these obnoxious ideas, Krishna is impersonal, Krishna is void, Krishna is just some mundane fellow, or Krishna is a thief or a womanizer or some obnoxious mundane idea like this. All these mundane ideas will go away with these three things. Prabhupada is very nicely here summarizing devotional service in these three things: swadhyaya, archana vidhi, and shravanadi shuddha chitte. studying the Vedic literatures, hearing from the Shastra, worshiping the deity, and Shravanadi, engaging in all the limbs of devotional service, beginning with hearing. This is very nice. So studying the Shastra, Vedais Chasarvara Hameva Vedya, Vedanta Vid Eva, Vedanta Krit Veda Vid Eva Chaham, that Krishna is understood through the Vedas. This is certainly true. Because he's the goal of the Vedas. He is the Vedas. He's the compiler of the Vedas. So we study the Vedas to understand Krishna. And then we have to actually do actual seva, actual devotional service to the deity. If you've heard any of my classes before, I always remember this verse, this teaching of Srila Rupa Goswami, that Nam Kirtan, Satsang, Bhagavat Shravan, Mathuravas, Archamurti, Shraddhaya Sevan, that these 5 activities are so powerful that simply a little attachment to them brings one to the level of bhava. Nam Kirtan, chanting the holy name, associating with devotees, Bhagavat Shravan, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, going to the holy places and worshiping the deity with great faith and love. This will enrich our theoretical understanding of Krishna, which we get from studying the Vedas, and make it real, brings it to life. In ordinary, it's not armchair philosophy that, oh yes, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and go about your business. No, we read Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore we then devote ourselves to serving him in the form of the deity. And by doing this, Krishna becomes controlled. One who surrenders in that way, by studying Shastra, by worshiping the deity, by engaging in all the process of devotional service, Krishna is conquered. Krishna comes under control. Actually, that Krishna book segment I read, that was actually applicable here. That when Nanda Maharaj untied Krishna from the grinding mortar, then all the gopis were praising Krishna and singing his glories, and they were singing and clapping their hands and making him dance. And Krishna was dancing just like a puppet under the control of the gopis. Actually, that segment goes on. Sometimes Madhya Yashoda used to ask Krishna to bring her a wooden plank for sitting. Although the wooden plank was too heavy to be carried by a child, still somehow or other, Krishna would bring it to his mother. Sometimes, while worshiping Narayan, his father would ask him to bring his wooden slippers, and Krishna, with great difficulty, would put the slippers on his head and bring them to his father. When he was asked to lift some heavy article and was unable to lift it, he would simply move his arms. In this way, daily, at every moment, he was the reservoir of all pleasure to his parents. So this is how Krishna becomes the servant of his devotees. Madhya Yashoda says, oh, go bring this piece of wood, and Krishna struggles with the heavy piece of wood, becoming Yashoda's servant. Nanda Maharaj, oh, bring my sandals. And we've maybe seen that beautiful picture of Krishna holding Nanda Maharaj's sandals on his head. So that's like a dual servitude, because you only take someone's feet or someone's sandals on their head if you're surrendering to them. So Krishna was doing that for his father, Nanda Maharaj, and also struggling to carry them, which were, I guess, heavy for a little baby to carry. So Krishna becomes the servant of his devotees, or even all throughout Krishna's pastimes. In the Rasa dance, after Krishna tested the gopis by disappearing from the Rasa dance, and he saw how much they loved him and how much they were willing to give up everything to serve Krishna, then Krishna said, what's that? Napari aham niravadya samyuja. I cannot repay you for your devotional service. Even after millions of days of Lord Brahma, I cannot repay your service to me. Therefore, I simply have to remain in your debt. So in this way, Krishna becomes the servant of his devotee. Let's see. Prabhupada also. This is near the end of Prabhupada's life, near the end of his stay with us, when he was very sick and it looked like his death was imminent. And so, without going into the whole heartbreaking story, the devotees didn't know how to think about it and how to deal with Srila Prabhupada, that it seemed like he had given up eating, he was bedridden, he couldn't even talk very much, he couldn't do anything. And they were thinking, oh, well, it's the Prabhupada's getting ready to leave this world and go back to Krishna. But then they started begging Prabhupada to stay with them longer. And one devotee said, oh, it's up to Krishna. And Prabhupada said, no, Krishna has given me freedom to decide. So this was a very shocking thing for the devotees to hear. And of course, ultimately, Prabhupada did have to abide by Krishna's will and leave this world and go back to the spiritual world, or to continue preaching wherever it is he may have gone in his service to Krishna. But that statement that Prabhupada himself was given that freedom, that power to decide what to do. So Krishna serves his devotees and empowers his devotee. He's more pleased. Krishna was more pleased by seeing Arjuna fighting and being glorified. When you fight and win fame for yourself. And he was willing to forego that. He sees more pleasure in his devotees doing it. So Krishna is always trying to serve his devotees, just like Gopinath is serving Madhavendra Puri. Any question or comment on this section? We'll do one more verse and then we'll wrap it up. Anything? Okay, text 138.
এত বলি নমস্কারী করিলা গমন আবেশে করিলা পুরী সেই ক্ষীর ভক্ষণ.
The priest offered his obeisances to Madhavendra Puri and returned to the temple. Then, in ecstasy, Madhavendra Puri ate the sweet rice offered to him by Krishna. 139.
পাত্র প্রক্ষালন করি খণ্ড খণ্ড কইল বহির্বাসে বান্ধি সেই ঠিকারি রাখিল.
After this, Madhavendra Puri washed the pot and broke it into pieces. He then bound all the pieces in his outer cloth and kept them nicely. This is very beautiful. He didn't just drink the sweet rice and go into ecstasy, but even because Gopinath, he stole the sweet rice and he also stole the pot that the sweet rice was in. So that was also emblematic of Gopinath's love for Madhavendra Puri. So he also kept the pieces of the pot. Very nice. Next text.
প্রতিদিন একখানি করেন ভক্ষণ খাইলে প্রেমাবেশে হয় অদ্ভুত কথন.
Each day, Madhavendra Puri would eat one piece of that earthen pot. And after eating it, he would immediately be overwhelmed with ecstasy. These are wonderful stories. I like the Sanskrit, adbhuta kata, amazing stories. And not just the sweet rice, but even the pieces of pot he would eat. I'm not exactly sure how he would handle that. Sometimes the clay pots in India are, how would you say, I guess you would say like half-baked or not, or partially baked, so that after you use them, they would be thrown on the ground or thrown out, and that way they would break down very quickly back into the earth. So maybe it was a little softer, or maybe he was grinding it up, or maybe he was just eating pieces of clay pot. I don't know, but the ecstasy from that was just like the ecstasy of the sweet rice, because it was all connected with the same Leela, the same exchange of love between the Lord and his devotees. That is quite amazing, I think. Next verse.
ঠাকুর মোরে ক্ষীর দিল লোক সব শুনি দিনে লোক ভিড় হবে মোর প্রতিষ্ঠা জানি
Translation. Having broken the pot and bound the pieces in his cloth, Madhavendra Puri began to think, quote, the Lord has given me a pot of sweet rice, and when the people hear of this tomorrow morning, there will be great crowds. Here's the point of Madhavendra Puri's humility. So we'll read this one more verse. This will be last verse for today, 142.
এই ভয়ে রাত্রি শেষে চলিলা শ্রীপুরী সেইখানে গোপীনাথে দণ্ডবত করি
Thinking this, Sri Madhavendra Puri offered his obeisances to Gopinath on the spot and left Remuna before morning. So this is, we heard earlier, Mataji was explaining about how the devotee doesn't want praise for himself. Madhavendra Puri was actually scared of that praise. This is how he was thinking, right? When people hear about this, there'll be big crowds. He said, oh, people, you can imagine people come say, oh, Madhavendra Puri is so amazing. The deity stole sweet rice for him. And there'll be crowds and worshiping him and trying to, touch his feet or whatever, praising him. And he thought, I don't need any part of this. There'll be these great crowds. So therefore, he just left. Before the people even knew, early in the morning, he left before that Brahmana could spread the news of this amazing devotee and the stolen sweet rice. He simply left town to avoid this. So this is, like I said, Prabhupada said, the devotee is silent worker. He doesn't need praise. He's not dependent on praise, and he certainly doesn't seek praise. Just simply, again, when the gopis were worshiping Krishna in the rasa dance, and Krishna came back and said, I cannot repay you. What did he say to them? I cannot repay you for your service even after many lifetimes of Lord Brahma. And then what did he tell them? You will simply have to be satisfied with your own pious acts. So the devotee is satisfied simply with the devotional service, and the loving exchange with Krishna is sufficient. He's not dependent on getting praise on top of that. Even if no one praises, he's secure in his devotional service. I know, and of course you have to make sure that this is the case, that I'm doing an actual bona fide service, a proper service. Shruti Smriti Puranadi. It's in line with Swadhyaya, with the injunctions of the Vedas, which you've studied nicely. It's in line with the rules and regulations of Archana, the rules and regulations of devotional service. It's a proper service given to me by my spiritual master in Parampara. And you're satisfied with that. I'm doing my service to the best of my ability. I'm offering it to Krishna, and I know Krishna is reciprocating with me. I don't need necessarily, although it may be nice, I'm not dependent upon a pat on the head or a pat on the back in order to be happy. So this is the position of Madhavendra Puri. Such a great devotee. Krishna personally spoke to him. And then this other great devotee, the Brahmana, Krishna also spoke to him and directed him what to do. And this beautiful pastime is taking place. And let's also remember the context of this pastime. All the devotees of Mahaprabhu are there. And Mahaprabhu himself is telling this story to Lord Nityananda. Actually, I don't know how many devotees were there. If it was just a few with Nityananda, or maybe there was a crowd, I'm not sure. I can't remember. But Mahaprabhu is telling this story to Lord Nityananda. So hearing these beautiful pastimes and hearing the exemplary behavior, we're not Madhavendra Puri, and we're not the Brahmana Pujari either. But again, we have our service, our bona fide service, and we're also surrounded by other devotees who are great devotees, maybe greater than we know. And we're doing our service happily, and we're satisfied in that. This is our satisfaction. This is our happiness. And even at little service, Prabhupada told how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, back in the day, if a brahmachari went out and distributed just a couple of magazines on the street, a couple of the temple I don't know, Sajjana Toshini or whatever the magazine was called, if he distributed just a few, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would praise him. Oh, you've done such nice service. So the devotee hearing that praise knows this is a bona fide service, and I'm satisfied doing that. And we can all feel that, sort of like Madhavendra Puri, and then eventually someday Krishna may actually speak to us in a dream in our heart. But in the meantime, hearing from the spiritual master, hearing from the Shastra, hearing from the other devotees is just as good. Just like Prabhupada said about Arjuna. Arjuna is hearing from Krishna, but if we study Bhagavad Gita in Parampara, that's as good as hearing directly from Krishna. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Any other discussion, questions, or things people want to discuss about today's study, about today's reading? Just as we're not Madhavendra Puri, I'm not Vishnu Gada. His presentation is so much better and more enlivening and more beautiful. But there are a lot of beautiful things in this purport. I've tried to bring out a few of the points. I hope everyone liked. Anything? Comments or discussion?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
All grace to Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu, I wanted to ask a question. Like we see Madhavendra Puri's mode. He was going away if like someone wants to praise him on. So, but I just wanted to ask, whenever we do little service to the Lord, so we cannot hide like Madhavendra Puri did, and devotees want to praise. Then what we actually say to them in returns?
So different people handle this in different ways. I think one way to do it is just to say Hare Krishna, or to say Hare Krishna, thank you very much, and just leave it at that. If you want, you could protest. Oh, it's not me, it's Krishna. But that's also to say that it's Krishna. That also means, oh, Krishna's working through me. So that's also almost a kind of hidden self-praise. So I just think just gracefully.
Krishna's mercy.
Yeah. So just gracefully accept. Thank you for your kind words, and go on. That's my personal opinion. We don't need to dwell on it.
Yeah.
By trying to enjoy it too much. And we don't need to dwell on it by fighting it too much. Just accept that this devotee is very kind and he's trying to encourage me. And Hare Krishna, thank you.
Okay, Prabhu.
There's other way. That's not the only way to handle it. That's just my off-the-cuff comment for now.
Yeah, one great devotee in Bangladesh, Prabhu, we always do class with him. So if someone praise him, he always say Sri Vishnu, Sri Vishnu.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice technique. Also, that's nice. Also, just like when people would tell Mahaprabhu, "Oh, you're the supreme personality of Godhead," he would actually cover his ears and go, "Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnu." You can never be the same as the living entity. So Sri Vishnu, something, just gracefully accept it. Accept it. Say thank you. Say Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu is also like an acceptance or an offering. That's like the short offering, right? If you're offering food, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. So you're offering that within your mind. You're offering that praise back to Krishna, back to the spiritual master, and move on. There's no need to make a big deal of it. And we could also be happy about it in the sense, not for taking personal credit, but if the devotees are happy with my service, that's a good thing. That means we might be doing something right. So we could look at it also in a positive and humble way also. But there's a variety of ways to handle it. Sometimes in Mahaprabhu's Leela, like Krishna Das Kaviraj, they say, "Oh, I'm the most fallen. I'm lower than the worm in stool." There's a story, I think it's apocryphal. I've never heard it on tape and I've never seen it in the Vedabase, but there's one story that one devotee said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen." And Prabhupada reportedly said, maybe he said, but the story is reported, he said, "You are not the most anything." So don't protest your greatness too much, and don't protest your fallenness too much either. Just accept you're a devotee, and I'm doing some service, I'm trying my best. And if the devotees like it, that's also nice. Yes, Golokananda Priya, please. Prabhu, please.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Well, I was asking, one of the 5 important things that he recommended, is daily worship. But throughout the years, I've seen a lot of devotees, they feel they're not qualified enough, to worship the deities. So how do we encourage these kind of devotees?
Well, it's according to, you can't force someone, and deity worship is a lot of different things. Deity worship could mean very pucka with rules and regulations and vidhi and mantras and tantras in the temple with everything very perfect. Or deity worship can also mean you have a picture of the deities in your house, and every morning you ring a bell and offer a stick of incense and then sit down and chant or something like that. That's also deity worship. So different people, according to their taste, according to their position, according to their time, place, and circumstances, will engage in different ways. But it's always good to, in a gentle way, encourage someone to do more, or at least invite. Say, "Oh, would you like to help make the garlands? Would you like to help cook an offering? Would you like to do this or that for the deity?" So we can encourage, just like we encourage anyone in devotional service, but also recognizing that deity worship is a very broad thing. Even just coming to the temple and offering obeisances is also deity worship. So there's different things for different people. And if we could do more, that's good. And if we can encourage others without pressuring them too much or without driving them away, encourage them to do more, that's also good. Was that helpful at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Would you like to add something to that?
But sometimes, like in some temples, there's a needs, this, for Brahmana to go and do some service.
Yeah, so that's actually a good point. And sometimes we need to do that and say, "Prabhu, I know you're busy, or maybe this is not your first choice of service, but we're in need. Would you be willing to help?" And that's where an expert manager comes into play. A manager who understands the needs of the temple and also understands the needs of the devotee community and the devotees he works with, and knows how to harmonize those nicely. And pushing a person to do a little extra service that maybe they wouldn't volunteer to do or wouldn't normally want to do can be a very beautiful and wonderful thing for that devotee himself, who will then realize, "Oh, I'm doing more service to Krishna than before. This is a good thing." Or if handled by a insensitive manager, it could also drive some away, that you could fry someone out or overwork them or push them to something they're not ready for. So the expert manager has both, good management skills and also good people skills and knows and works with and already has a relationship with the people in his community, and also the spiritual skills, because Prabhupada said, I can't remember the exact words, but if you chant and follow the 4 regulative principles and do everything properly, he said, then management will be at your fingertips. So a combination of these things in a qualified and intelligent manager will hopefully know how to handle this. And ultimately, another point is that the manager who needs more people on the altar, for example, will also understand that in that community, they also need to vigorously increase the preaching, because then that will bring in more people and increase your pool of servants, even from the practical side. So all these things are considered by the intelligent devotee manager, which I have zero firsthand experience. So you could probably just ignore everything I said because I've never touched management in my entire life. So what do I know about it? But those are just some thoughts off the top of my head. Is that all right?
Yeah, yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Anything else? Almost, yeah, after 9 o'clock, so maybe we'll wrap it up here. Thank you very much, everybody, for your very kind attention. Stay warm, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Acharya Prabhu.
Thank you very much.